From Warsaw, Poland, where the climate is cold and the protests are hot, we're broadcasting from the United Nations Climate Change Summit. This is Democracy Now!
We have to do something in the short term. It's about the few, not about the many. And it is not about population. Mitigation for 2 degrees C is a consumption issue. The poor will not become wealthy enough, fast enough, to be able to buy the things that mean they really emit a lot. A few of them will, but by and large they won't. So mitigation for 2 degrees C is a consumption issue by the people that we know are consuming. Wearing
T-shirts that say, "Polluters talk, we walk." Hundreds of activists walk out of the climate talks here in Warsaw. We'll speak with 2 leading scientists about climate change going beyond dangerous, brutal numbers, and tenuous hope. Kevin Anderson and Alice Bowes say the United States and other wealthy nations must drastically cut their emissions by radically reducing consumption and slowing economic growth. And as some of the Arctic 30 are freed on bail in Russia, we'll speak with Greenpeace head Kumi Naidoo.
History will judge that these 30 people stood up for the 7 billion people on the planet, and that what they did was just, fair, and should be considered as heroes.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The White House and Afghanistan have reached agreement on a bilateral security pact that would preserve a U.S. military occupation beyond 2014. Under the deal, the U.S. military would maintain several bases and its troops would be immune from prosecution in Afghan courts. The U.S. would not conduct military operations, quote, unless mutually agreed. Afghan officials say they've kept their demand for a White House apology over deadly raids on Afghan homes, but in Washington, Secretary of State John Kerry said an apology is off the table.
But let me be clear. President Karzai didn't ask for an apology. There was no discussion of an apology. There is no, I mean, it's just not even on the table. He didn't ask for it. We're not discussing it. And that is not the subject that we have been talking about. What we've been talking about are the terms of the BSA itself.
The U.S.-Afghan pact now goes before an Afghan Council of Elders known as the Loya Jirga meeting in Afghanistan today. If approved, the U.S. is expected to maintain a force of around 8,000 to 12,000 troops after the formal withdrawal next year. The U.S. has carried out a new drone strike in Pakistan, despite a reported pledge to halt the attacks during peace talks with the Taliban. U.S. missiles struck a religious school in northwestern Pakistan earlier today, killing up to 5 people. The strike comes one day after Pakistan's foreign minister said the U.S. had promised to hold back on drone strikes while the Pakistani government tries to engage the Taliban in negotiations. Pakistan accused the U.S. of derailing peace talks earlier this month after a strike that killed Taliban chief Hakimullah Massoud. At least 25 people have been killed and more than 30 wounded in a car bombing in northeastern Iraq. It was the 3rd major bombing in Iraq this week. Iraq is currently suffering its worst violence in 5 years. New disclosures from whistleblower Edward Snowden show the National Security Agency has stored and analyzed the private data of British citizens despite no suspicion of wrongdoing. An NSA memo from 2007 says the U.S. and Britain reached an agreement that would grant the NSA access to phone, internet, and email records that had previously been off limits. The information stored in databases available to other U.S. intelligence and military agencies. A separate memo from 2005 outlines NSA proposals for spying on citizens in other so-called Five Eyes nations, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, even when the surveillance request has been denied. The news comes amidst a continued diplomatic fallout between Indonesia and Australia over NSA spying. Indonesia has recalled its ambassador to Australia and frozen military cooperation following recent disclosures showing the NSA used Australia as part of its global spying operations. Australian intelligence agencies reportedly tried to tap the phone of Indonesia's president and other top officials. Earlier today, around 200 people marched on the Australian embassy in Jakarta, some burning Australian flags. During a visit to Washington, both Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop and Secretary of State John Kerry refused to comment on the Indonesia controversy.
We do not discuss intelligence matters, certainly not allegations. We do not discuss them publicly, and we will not do so.
We work with our friends in Indonesia on many different issues, and we will continue to do that. But whatever has been or not been released or being discussed in the papers, I believe, as I think our friends in Australia do, is a matter of intelligence and intelligence procedures, and we don't discuss intelligence procedures in any sort of public way.
Activist shareholders with the telecom giants AT&T and Verizon have submitted resolutions seeking transparency on the firm's role in NSA spying. Measures proposed by Trillium Asset Management of Boston and the New York State Common Retirement Fund call on AT&T and Verizon to report semi-annually on, quote, metrics and discussion regarding requests for customer information by U.S. and foreign governments. Illinois has become the 16th state to legalize same-sex marriage. Democratic Governor Pat Quinn signed the measure into law Wednesday, 1 week after its passage in the state assembly. The law will take effect June 1st of next year. Republican Congressmember Trey Raydell of Florida has been sentenced to 1 year probation after pleading guilty to charges of misdemeanor possession of cocaine. After appearing in court, the congressman announced he's taking a leave of absence to seek treatment. In September, he voted for a provision in the House Farm Bill that would force food stamp recipients to undergo drug testing. On Wednesday, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi said she hopes Republicans rethink their stance in light of Raydell's drug conviction. And a Virginia state senator is recovering in good condition after being stabbed by his son. Creed Deeds, a Democrat and former candidate for governor, was hospitalized after his son stabbed him in the head and chest. The son, Austin Deeds, was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He'd undergone psychiatric evaluation a day earlier, but was not admitted to a hospital because of a lack of available beds. The Washington Post reports other area hospitals had available beds, but were not consulted. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report.